You can always trust me to bring a party when I have abortion tools and fetal models. That's the sign of any good pro-life activist. When you start having fetal models and pro-life bumper stickers and yard signs in the trunk of your car, you know you've made it and you've become a pro-life activist. So I want to thank you guys for coming today and to hear my presentation, and hopefully take a lot of questions and hopefully provide some answers for you. Questions that you may have had about abortion, arguments that you might have heard from family or friends or seen online. So make sure you kind of write them down as I'm talking. I'm sure I'll make a couple of you at least a little bit angry. So that'll be good. You can come up and ask your questions. And even if you're not angry, even if you look a little angry, it's a little more fun for me because I actually enjoy speaking to hostile audiences. So you can just look hostile. It'll be fun. I think I do better at hostile audiences, actually. I was speaking at Ave Maria University, and I was begging the Students for Life leaders to look mean. And they tried so hard, but they just fail. They're just too joyous at Ave Maria University, which I think the school would be very proud of right now. So I want to talk today about why I believe the future of our nation, of our country, will be anti-abortion. Now, one thing I do want to talk about before we kind of go deep into it and I explain why I haven't lost my mind, despite everything that's happened in Washington, D.C. and goes on in our politics, that I actually do think we will become an anti-abortion nation. I do want to start off by saying anytime someone talks about the abortion issue, anytime the pro-life movement plans an event, we do not do that to shame women, to shame people who've been involved in an abortion decision. We believe we have to speak out because we know the truth of what happens inside of Planned Parenthood and other abortion facilities every day. And those who know the truth have been called to speak truth. And if you don't speak out, you're condemning others to die. But we don't speak in order to shame or to hurt those who've been party to abortion. And so if you have a parent who's been party to an abortion, if you have a friend, a family member who's had an abortion, I would encourage you to walk alongside them, help them receive the post-abortion help that they need to heal from the abortion decision that they have made. There's a really great resource called abortionchangesyou.org and also abortionrecovery.org that you can direct friends, family to find licensed counselors in whatever community you're in here in Phoenix or wherever you go after high school to college to get help. If you also know somebody who's experiencing a crisis pregnancy, an unplanned pregnancy, you can always tell them to text helpline to 313131 or go to optionline.org to find a pro-life pregnancy center. You guys have some amazing resources here in the Phoenix Diocese, as well as maternity homes to help support women. So that's just my little disclaimer, and I think that's important anytime we talk about abortion. So why do I think the future of America will be anti-abortion? I think when I say this on campuses or when we talk about creating a culture of life where abortion is made illegal and unthinkable, which is a twofold goal in the pro-life movement, it kind of scares people. All of us who were born after 1973, and yes, I know you think I'm old, but I'm actually not as old as you would think probably. All of us who were born after 1973 survived abortion. We've actually never lived in a country without legal abortion. And so it's kind of scary when people talk about making abortion illegal again because there's a lot of questions that we have. And we should be open about talking about what our vision is to create an abortion-free society. But despite the fact that we've had almost 50 years of legal abortion, of more than 50 million preborn baby girls and baby boys who've been killed, tens of thousands, tens of millions of women who've been victimized by the abortion industry, I do believe change is on its way, and it's coming. Even, regardless of what you see in Washington, D.C., and all of the things that are happening right now. And I believe we will see an anti-abortion future for a couple of reasons, and I want to go through those with you today. The first one is we have to have an anti-abortion future because science and technology prove what is inside of a mother is not a blob of tissue, is not simply, a useless parasite that has no value, but it is a unique, whole, living human being with a unique set of DNA that's never existed before and will never exist again. That is truth. The ultrasound technology, the fact that we actually do surgery now. We have surgeries on children who are in utero. All of that proves that the talking points we often hear by those who espouse the freedom of choice or talk about how proud they are to be pro-abortion, the talking points they use are antiquated. They're out of date. When Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton were handed down in 1973, those are the two Supreme Court decisions that forced every state in our nation to allow abortion in all 9 months for whatever reason. When the Supreme Court handed down those two decisions, they said that it was unclear about when human life began. Well, ultrasound and technology have made it crystal clear. It is definitive. It's simply science denial to say what is inside of a mother is not a unique, whole, living human being, a member of our species. And yet I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. In fact, often when I'm debating someone who supports abortion on a campus and we're having a conversation, I'll say, excuse me, I know you're really not a science denier. You're arguing that the preborn child doesn't have value, but you can't argue with me that the preborn child isn't a child, isn't a member of our species. And it takes a couple of minutes for someone to actually go, oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then we have to get to the question of value. But think about it. At 21 days after conception, most of the time before a mother even knows she's pregnant, her child's heart has already begun to beat. At 6 weeks after her last menstrual period, brainwave activity has begun. Arm and leg bones have begun to form. There's tooth buds. At 7 weeks, the formation of the heart is already complete. Legs and arms can move. The child can hiccup. At 8 weeks, fingers and toes are webbed but growing. Urine production begins and release begins. This is the point I always bring up when I talk about urine production. My kids find this hilarious. When I gave birth to my fourth daughter, she was the only child we managed to get on videotape her birth. And I know my husband is terrible at photography, even worse than I am. But we managed to get Gracie's birth because it was C-section, it was planned. We had talked about how he still managed to shoot it horizontal and it messed it up. But we got it, and my kids love it. My daughter loves watching her birth story. Why? Because as soon as she emerged from my womb, she peed all over me. And my kids think that's hilarious that she peed inside a mom. That's what they always say. Gracie peed inside a mom. And they watch it. Let me watch the pee video over again. At 8 weeks, 2 months after a woman's last menstrual cycle, urine production release begins. I find that fascinating. At 9 weeks, a child can suck his or her thumb. A baby can yawn. At 10 weeks, fingernails and toenails begin to form. Fingerprints have already been created, unique fingerprints. At 11 weeks, the child in the womb can make complex facial expressions. They have nose and their lips have formed. At 13 weeks, pro-life and pro-choice scientists agree that most of the child's body is sensitive to touch. In fact, because the brain isn't fully developed yet, the child can actually feel more pain because the child can't localize where the pain is happening. If you touch a child here, the child feels the pain all over his or her body. This is when the majority of abortions are committed in our country, in the first trimester. So sometimes you'll hear folks who support abortion say, well, I'm against abortion in the second and third trimester, but first trimester is okay. That's what they support. So you can't deny that science has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt what is inside of a woman is a child, is a human being, is a member of our species that's unique, that's never existed before and will never exist again. In addition, I also believe we'll have an anti-abortion future in our country because I trust the videos, the training, the photos that current and former abortionists and abortion workers show us of how abortions actually happen. Have you guys ever Googled what happens during an abortion? It's nothing short of violence. In fact, think of it this way. If an abortionist enters a room and there's a beating heart, there's 2 beating hearts, abortionists will not be successful in their job unless there's only 1 beating heart when they leave. That is their job. An abortionist only knows success in his or her job if he or she stops a beating heart. That's success. If a heart is still beating inside of a woman, they have failed in their job. They have failed to end the life of a unique, whole, living human being. That's what abortion is. That's what happens 972 times every single day of Planned Parenthoods across the country. About 3,000 throughout our country. Every day. So when someone tells you, oh, well, I don't like Planned Parenthood, they do abortions, but they do some good things, yeah, they end 972 heartbeats every single day. How many kindergarten classrooms is that? We will have an anti-abortion future because word is getting out about abortion procedures. In fact, you can go online to pregnancy websites, not pro-life websites or chat rooms, just pregnancy websites, and women are speaking out about their stories. They're actually sick of the abortion industry's gaslighting, of telling them that their guilt and the shame that they feel about the abortion, that the pain that they felt physically and emotionally after their abortion was nothing, and that there's something wrong with them. They're speaking out about their stories. They're talking about the pain the abortion caused them during the abortion, immediately after, and for decades after that. They're speaking out about how having the abortion didn't actually solve any of the problems they thought it would. Didn't end the abusive relationship, didn't cure the poverty. It didn't do any of that. Abortion just left her with a child that is dead. And the abortion procedure is so violent. For the women who've experienced it, who didn't have enough money to pay for the twilight anesthesia, who only paid for the local, who were awake. I have a friend, Jocelyn, in Des Moines, who has had a bunch of problems with her mouth. She's had to have a couple surgeries now, and she had 2 teeth abscess. I don't know if you've ever had an abscess tooth, but it is like the worst pain ever. It's like it's an infection in the root of your tooth, and I think it's worse than actually giving birth to a child, by the way. I've had 2 of them. And it's so painful. And Jocelyn was saying, I said, well, what happened? Like, why did you have this tooth abscess? Why couldn't you go get help? Why did you deal with this pain for weeks on end? She ended up finally going to the emergency room. And her story came out. Jocelyn had an abortion. Because of her abortion, she is physically unable to walk into a dentist's office today. Because the whirring that you hear with the machines, the whooshing of the machines, sound exactly like the suction abortion she endured. It's too traumatic for her. So she forgoes all dental care until it's an emergency, and she goes to an emergency room. She endures painful dental procedures at the hospital because she cannot go to a dentist's office. But that's the reality of abortions, the scars that abortion leaves. Majority of abortions today are committed using a suction machine, where the child in the first trimester is sucked out of the mother's womb, the placenta taken with it, all the pregnancy tissue taken with it, with a machine, a little clear wand that has a suction vacuum 29 times more powerful than your household vacuum. That's the majority of abortions today in America. The next and up and coming way that the abortion industry is committing abortions are called pill abortions, RU486. The abortion industry is actually trying to rename these abortions missed period pills because women don't like abortion. So that way it's like, oh, you don't have to have a pregnancy test, just take these pills and you'll never really know if you killed your child. These pills are deadly. 5 to 8% of the time, they fail to kill the child, and a woman has to go in for a surgical abortion. About 8% of the time, she'll end up in an emergency room seeking care for hemorrhaging or for pain. Have any of you ever seen the Unplanned movie? Yeah, there's a scene in the Unplanned movie where they show Abby's chemical abortion. It's horrendous. You can go to thisischemicalabortion.com, and actually we have that scene. The producers gave me the rights to just that scene to show every person in America what happens in chemical abortion. The abortion industry loves chemical abortion, by the way, because it's cheap. They don't have to pay for the disposal of the child. They don't have to convince an abortionist to chop up and put together the child to make sure all the pieces of the child are accounted for and nothing's left inside the mother that could lead to infection. They love it because she takes the pill and she's told to sit in the toilet and flush and not to look. We call them toilet bowl abortions. Second trimester abortions, which are still legal throughout our country and the majority of our states, are committed using a D&E, a dilation of the cervix, and extraction. You can go to the National Abortion Federation. This is like the union of abortion workers. Their website actually will teach students and can teach you, if you want to know, how to end the life of a child through a D&E abortion. They use tools like this sofa clamp here that has serrated teeth. It's very sharp, that grasps. And what they do is after ripening the cervix, after dilating the cervix, they use these sofa clamps and they reach into the woman and the child's positioned like this, and you start with the limbs, and these hold on, these grasp, and they twist and they pull. That's how dilation and extraction abortions happen. In fact, there was a very well-known abortionist here in Arizona who was recently captured in some undercover footage that my friend captured at one of the NAF conferences. You know, all the abortionists got together and they party and have fun. And she was actually on tape lamenting the fact that she was doing so many of these abortions, and she was doing them over 21 weeks after the point where everyone knows a child can feel pain, that she was having to go to the gym because it was giving her arm a workout because the child's skull, the bones in the child's skull are so well formed, it was really hard for her to grasp and twist and collapse the skull. This is how a D&E abortion, I am not exaggerating for you how a D&E abortion is committed. You can look up this on the National Abortion Federation. And this should make you absolutely sick to your stomach, by the way. It should make you uncomfortable. That in America today, we do this. We say that we're like a first world country and we're like super humane, and we go out and protest for all of these things, saying that we value all human life, and yet we do this to defenseless little children. This is what we do. The most common type of late-term abortion that happens in America, and late-term abortions happen, the abortion industry likes to pretend like they don't. The Alan Guttmacher Institute, the research arm of Planned Parenthood, it was named after eugenicists who believe certain people based on their skin color shouldn't be allowed to reproduce. The Alan Guttmacher Institute, actually, they're like the foremost collector of abortion statistics in our country, estimates between 1.2 to 1.3% of all abortions in America are committed in the late term, in the third trimester, after a child can be born and live. If any of you were born premature, do you ever know anybody who was born prematurely? We spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars assuring that children who are born at 25, 26 weeks survive. But down the street or across the hall in another room, we can legally end the life of those children in many states. These third trimester abortions are extremely dangerous for women. What's interesting, we often hear the abortion advocates justify that we need third trimester abortion because what if a child has Down syndrome? Or what if a child's like mine and has cystic fibrosis, a deadly genetic disease? Or what if a child has this, or this? We have to have late-term abortion. Let me just tell you what happens in late-term abortion, and you think about whether or not this will cure Down syndrome or cystic fibrosis. Right now, the most common way to end a life in the late term is through, we call them heart attack abortions. A medicine, digoxin, is inserted into a mother's abdomen using ultrasound-guided technology, pierces the mother's abdomen. The goal is to reach the child's heart. The medicine's inserted into the child's digoxin. I guess I shouldn't say medicine, it's poison. Digoxin causes cardiac arrest. A child has a heart attack. A mother's cervix becomes ripened over several days, and then she delivers a dead child. That's how late-term abortions are committed in our country. There's about 11 to 12,000 of them every single year. What I just described did not cure Down syndrome, did not cure cystic fibrosis, did not cure any medical ailments or genetic disabilities that a child may have. All that does is kill that human being. Doesn't end the suffering, it ends the sufferer. That's how abortions are committed in our country. I believe that truth, and I know that truth is getting out there through undercover work, through work you guys are doing on campus, talking to your friends about the abortion procedure. It's undeniable of what happens inside every single abortion facility every single day is an act of violence. I also believe we'll be anti-abortion, our future will be anti-abortion because, like I said, women are finally speaking out. This summer when everything was shut down because of COVID and Students for Life, we usually go on tour. We go to Christian rock concerts across the country to recruit and to educate high school students about abortion. We couldn't do that. So what we did is we went online, we went into chat rooms, and we started talking with women who are in crisis pregnancies and offering help and support and to connect them to the resources in their community. And what we found was shocking. Women were going into pregnancy chat rooms, not prompted on their own to express the pain and hurt of their abortions and to ask, had other people experienced it? In fact, we have a 70-page book. I mentioned earlier that website, thisischemicalabortion.com. You can download this free book we put together. We redacted, obviously, everyone's names, but all of the testimonies that we collected just in a period of a month of women who are going to these sites. And these are just the testimonies of women who had undergone a chemical abortion, who were told, oh, this will be easier, it's just some pills. And the stories that they have told. Women they're getting angry. They're speaking out. If you've ever been to the March for Life, if you've ever been to any pro-life event, you'll see the women and men from Silent No More Awareness who are giving their testimony, who are speaking about their abortion, how it hurt them. That's so powerful. Their voices are so powerful because they themselves are the second victim of the abortion industry that were preyed upon. And we're told, yeah, this will make it go away. Or we're told, yeah, you're right. You aren't strong enough to finish school and also be a mom. And we have the solution for you. I also believe our future will be anti-abortion because of you guys. Despite the fact that we've had 50 years of legal abortion, despite the fact that Hollywood, the woke corporate CEOs, politicians, they've continued to use this outdated rhetoric about abortion, and they continue to scream and shout, and there's been all of these campaigns like shout your abortion, good mothers have abortions, all of these things that they have tried to do over the years. The majority of our generation, yours and mine, Generation Y and Z, continue to reject abortion. Despite the fact that we're a diverse generation, we're actually the most diverse generation in American history. We're the least religious generation in American history. We come from a variety of religious faith backgrounds, a variety of ethnicities. We have varying views on politics. In fact, we're the most, 18 to 35-year-olds right now are the most liberal voting bloc in America. Despite all of that, we all agree and know what goes on every single day that's called abortion, that's called reproductive choice. There's something wrong with it. Because we all instinctively as human beings, we haven't lost our humanity. We try to ignore the humanity of others, but we haven't lost our humanity. We all get that kind of icky feeling in our gut when someone explains and shows abortion instruments and tools and talks about abortion procedure. Why is it that they try to shut you down and shut you up online? I don't think you have the problem in your school, but when you get to college, when you talk about abortion, why will your professor say, you can talk about any subject for your paper except abortion? Don't talk about abortion. If you talk about abortion, I'll give you an F. Why is that? Because they fear the truth. And we have that truth. And we refuse to be silent. You all refuse to be silent. We really are the pro-life generation. As much as they've thrown every single thing they can at us, every single lie, every single piece of rhetoric at us, every celebrity who's like cool or whatever, we still say there's something wrong with abortion. That's a tough nut to crack. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get us to ignore our instinct, our humanity, to recognize the humanity in another member of our species. That's why I believe we'll be anti-abortion very soon. That we're already seeing it in state capitals across the country. We've passed hundreds of laws in the last 20 years, last 15 years that protect children in the womb. In Washington, D.C. right now, there's like this flurry of activity to force every single taxpayer in America, regardless of their religious views, to fund abortion. They want to fund abortion all 9 months. They want to pack the Supreme Court from 9 justices to 13. And it's all over one issue, abortion. There's all of these things happening in Washington, D.C. On Tuesday, the Food and Drug Administration pulled the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine, which, by the way, was made with the stem cells of an aborted child, pulled that vaccine because 1 person died and 5 people almost died, which they should have pulled it. That's their job, to say if something's killing people, we shouldn't be administering it. But the same day, the Food and Drug Administration, this regulatory body is supposed to make sure that the drugs and the food that we consume are safe. The same day the FDA came out and said, oh yeah, 24 women have died from chemical abortion that we know of. About 5% of women who take this drug have to still have a surgical abortion. 5 to 8 have, emergency room level complications, but we should be able to give this drug out via webcam without a woman even ever having to confirm with a doctor that she's pregnant, confirm the location of the child, make sure she's not experiencing ectopic pregnancy that can kill a woman, confirm that she doesn't have Rh negative status, meaning if she has an abortion and she's Rh negative, she will never be able to carry another child to term ever again. Just go ahead, no test abortion, because the right to abortion, the access to abortion, trumps safety. So there's a lot of bad things happening in our country right now. But despite all that, our generation still rejects abortion. Now, a lot of people, and your job, and what I want to talk to you about today, is your job is to tell people about abortion. You have to be a little bit of the annoying person who doesn't shut up about abortion because you know injustice is happening. If you know injustice is happening and you refuse to talk about it, if you're too afraid to talk about it, what does that say about you? You're allowing it to happen. We did a poll just now it'll be 3 months ago, it was in January, Students for Life, and we did 18 to 35-year-olds, Democrats and Republicans, independents, asked views about abortion. And we also asked what they knew about abortion. We said, how do you feel about Roe versus Wade, good or bad? I knew what the answer was going to be. Overwhelmingly, people we polled said, good, I like Roe versus Wade. Okay. One line. Did you know Roe versus Wade and Doe versus Bolton, that were handed down the same day, legalized abortion all 9 months for whatever reason? That's all we said. How do you feel about Roe versus Wade? We had a 30-point flip. Meaning the majority then said, wait a minute, I don't like Roe versus Wade. The truth is on our side. It's right there. You just have to be the ones to tell it. And you have to be unafraid to tell the truth. You have to be unafraid to talk about abortion, to bring up the uncomfortable. Because if you don't, your friend, your family member will not know. And the abortion industry certainly isn't going to tell her. Certainly isn't going to tell her what happens during that abortion procedure or show her. You have to be the one to tell her. The other thing you have to do for your friends, family, for the whole country, and what we need to do a better job of in the pro-life movement, is we need to be better marketers for what it is we do. I don't know about you, but I am so sick and tired of the lie of, well, you're so pro-life, but what do you do about women here, here, and here? First of all, I can make a moral argument and be a total hypocrite and not do anything. That doesn't change the validity of my moral argument. But second of all, we're not hypocrites because we are the ones providing support. The pro-life movement has founded over 3,000 pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes across the country. There's fewer than 600 abortion facilities. Who are the people who go out in front of the Planned Parenthood abortion facilities to pray and to offer hope? Here in Phoenix, we're going door to door now with our Pro-Life Future campaign to educate neighbors about pregnancy alternatives, nonviolent alternatives to crisis pregnancies, to tell people what's going on. It's us. You don't see the abortion advocates or the abortion industry doing that. We are doing that. But we have to speak out about it. I actually think in the pro-life movement, we kind of stink at marketing. We're not really good at it. Like, we do all the stuff, but then we just oh, well, God will reward us because we did the stuff. God also wants us to be successful. It means talk about what we do. Put it up on a billboard. Broadcast it to our parishes. Tell everybody we know what the pro-life movement is doing, because people do not know. I mentioned that poll earlier we did of 18 to 35-year-olds. Less than 2 out of 10 knew of a place to refer a friend who was in a crisis pregnancy if she didn't want to have an abortion. Less than 2 out of 10. We have 3,000 pregnancy centers. We have 8,000 right now. You've never heard of this. It's called FQHCs. I worked in the government. It's all acronyms. Federally Qualified Health Centers. We have 8,000 federally qualified health centers that are in low-income, rural, and urban communities across America who do every single service Planned Parenthood does, minus abortion, plus a whole bunch more. And if you go to one of their clinics and you need a medical service and they don't have it, they're legally obligated to make sure you get to a clinic that provides that service. We have 8,000 of those. We have 3,000 pregnancy centers. If every single Planned Parenthood in America would shut down tomorrow, that's one of my goals, every federally qualified health center would only have to see 2 more patients a week to make up the difference. We don't need Planned Parenthood. We have the resources in place, but we have to be willing to talk about and be the marketers. And that's what's so great about what you all are doing. You all can be the marketers. To only speak truth about abortion, how it hurts women, how it always ends a beating heart of a unique whole human being, but how we also have a plan in the pro-life movement to support women and children. Because we're the age group that's most directly targeted by the abortion industry. They're targeting you on your phone, in your schools. You're their target demographic. Not your parents, not your grandparents. They don't care about them because they can't make money off them, but they can make money off you. So you have to take it upon yourselves to be the marketers for the pro-life movement, to be the spokespeople, to speak out. I think we have an anti-abortion future in America, and it's coming. We are stubborn. Americans are stubborn. I just actually did an event I came in yelling about with some Canadian pro-lifers earlier. I might have gotten to a little bit of an argument with a deacon. That's going to be later. But it was sad. It was a sad webcast because the webcast was about cancel culture and what's been happening to the Canadian pro-life movement. Their hospice centers, their pro-life pregnancy centers are being shut down. They're not allowed to operate. They can't pray in front of an abortion facility. Our Students for Life groups at the universities are being banned. They have no freedom of speech in Canada. And my charge to the Canadian pro-life movement was refuse to shut up. It's actually really simple. Refuse to give up. Be gritty. That is honestly the fundamental difference between our movement here in America and I think in every country. We have folks across the country, across the world who come here every year at the March for Life. Have any of you ever gone to the March for Life in Washington, D.C.? Okay. First of all, you need to get your butts to the March for Life in Washington. It is cold. You will need a jacket. Pretend you're going to Flagstaff for the day. You need to come to the March for Life. Folks across the world come to the March for Life. Oh, and by the way, Arizona Life Coalition is going to be giving away free, all expenses paid trips to Washington, D.C., flights and all to go to the March for Life and the National Pro-Life Summit, which is our event day after. So make sure you sign up because I don't know how Debbie's giving out those awards, but we got to get lots of scholarships. So make sure you sign up. But it's interesting, every year you go to the March for Life, there's all these pro-life leaders that come in from across the world. They come to our National Pro-Life Summit, which is the largest pro-life conference ever. And I always get the question of, well, what did you do differently? What's different here in America than in Australia or in Scotland and Great Britain and Poland and Spain and France and all these countries that come? And honestly, I don't really know the difference besides we are gritty, stubborn Americans who refuse to give up. That's what we need to do. And that's going to be your charge because as you guys leave your school and you guys all have your uniforms on, so you're pretty much at the same school probably, you guys have a pretty cushy life right now. But when you get out to college, wherever you go, get out into the workplace, there will be attempt after attempt to silence you. And it's harder than it's ever been before. In fact, I always joke, like if I was in college right now, I probably would have been expelled like 5 times over. It's going to be up to you to speak out. And don't worry, we have your back. We have a whole army of lawyers and the First Amendment, and we still have a Constitution. But you can't be silent. You can't let them silence you to say, no, I have the truth. I know what the truth is. I must speak it to save lives. And I must speak about what we can do, what our roadmap is to help women and children. You do that, you do those 2 things, and you will save lives. You will be an active member of the pro-life generation. You will ensure we have an anti-abortion future in America. All right, questions for me? You have to give me some hard questions. Come on, hard questions. Do you want them to come up, Kevin? I can't see. Oh, do you want them? Oh, yeah, there's a microphone right here. Sorry, the sun's like right there. I was like, huh. Oh, gosh, you have it written down. This might be really hard.
So I was on Instagram one time, and I was having this debate with someone. And I was basically told that all pro-lifers are just breeders, and that we don't care about kids after they're born. And so I'm just wondering how you would respond to that, because I didn't know what to say.
Yeah. Well, we are breeders. You're welcome, because we need to breed more human beings for the future of our species. So you can say, well, you're welcome. Yeah, this was, I spoke about this earlier, about this charge of like, you don't care about children after they're born. One, that could be true. I could be like a total meanie at home, not give to any charity, and speak about how abortion's wrong. That doesn't change the validity of the moral argument that I'm making, that abortion always kills a member of our species, unique whole human being, that human being has value, therefore abortion's wrong. That is like the pro-life argument in like 10 seconds, okay? It doesn't matter what I do in my personal life, that's still making the argument. But that's not true, because if you look at who the pro-life movement is, we are the ones who have the 3,000 pregnancy centers, who are actively doing everything we can in communities to surround women. And so I think you just have to fight that back with facts and say, oh, have you ever heard of optionline.org? Have you heard of this resource? Have you heard of this resource? I'm involved in this. What do you do for women who are in crisis? You know, what do you actually do to help a woman who's in a crisis pregnancy who doesn't want to choose abortion? Are you out there on Saturday morning praying in front of a Planned Parenthood offering support and hope? I am. So I think you just have to combat that. I think that's really, really important. I also think that I think we should definitely just, I don't know. I think that's enough. I can go into it, but I would confuse you. I have to be careful. I'm speaking to high school audience, not college audience, so I have to censor myself. I'm censoring myself. By the way, you can only be censored if you allow yourself to be censored. Just Debbie, if you have a question, come and ask it.
I just wanted to say that most of the pregnancy centers are walking with that woman for a minimum of 2 years. Am I right, Eloise? For a minimum of 2 years. And they do, and there are pregnancy homes too. And there's, in our diocese, we have Gerard House that takes in single moms with up to 3 kids and a place where they help them get set up with insurance, resume, job, et cetera, et cetera. So we walk with moms for a very long time.
Yeah, it's literally just an argument to shut you up. They try not to use it's a blob of tissue anymore because like science, and you can like show a picture of an ultrasound. So now that's their argument, and you're like, oh, what about all of these things we do? Like literally, I was at college a couple weeks ago, and a woman called me a racist and all these things, which was funny because I never brought up race. But she was like agreeing with me because I was like, oh, she's like, what do you do about foster care? I was like, well, actually, we do this and we do this and we do this. And she was like, And she's like, but you're still a racist. And I was like, okay, but I just answered every single concern you had, but you still just don't like me because I'm giving you information. And I think that's a really important point, is that I am sorry to be the one to break it to you, but not everyone's going to like you in your life, and you need to accept that and deal with it and move on. And when you speak truth, people aren't going to always like you. And I think that's why we want to be the truth and do it with hope and do it with charity and do it with joy. But even when you do that, some people aren't still going to like you. And even if you have all the facts, they're still going to hate you, which is why like our model on campuses is so important. It's belong, believe, behave. We want to have fun. We want to do events. We want to be in relationship with other people, because we know when people are in relationship with us, they'll tend to listen to us a little bit more versus somebody they've never heard before. So, does anyone have questions? Debbie, do you want to come up here and answer them? You'll have an answer for all. Come on. You have to ask in the microphone. Kevin, am I in a better position now? That's why it messed me up. I couldn't answer because he was texting me. Kevin's like, read your text. I had to move, sorry.
Hello.
Hi.
So I was talking to one of my friends who is pro-abortion, and she was saying that most pregnancies happen after 5 weeks, and that it's not a baby at that point. And then I sent her pictures. I'm like, that's a baby. And then she's like, well, it just looks like a baby. So what do I do then?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because sometimes I say, well, what is it? If it's not a baby, can you tell me what it is? It's a zygote. It's a fetus. Oh, okay. Is it a human fetus, or is it like a koala bear fetus? What is it? Because the law of biogenesis says that like begets like. Like, I want a koala bear more than anything else. Like, I want to adopt a koala bear. I've looked into it. Like, I will save up whatever I need to save to buy myself a koala bear. I'll get a eucalyptus tree. Like, I want a koala bear. But I cannot reproduce a koala bear. Can't happen. No matter how many times I might try to coax my husband into helping me have a koala bear, it doesn't happen. Because I can only make human babies. Right? So when someone says it's not a human, say, what is it? And then they'll usually say, it's a fetus, it's a zygote. I'll say, oh, okay. So is it a human zygote or koala bear zygote? Because you didn't come from a zygote. You didn't come from a fetus. You once were one. Those are stages in each and every human being's life. Just like how right now you're an adolescent, that's a stage in your life. Yep, there you go. Does that help you? I mean, honestly, the argument is going to be, it's not a human. Then you're going to ask them what it is, and then they'll have to say it's a human. And then they'll go, oh, okay, fine, it's a human. But then they'll say, but it's not a person. Because the argument that they're fundamentally always going to make, regardless of whatever issue they throw at you, sexual assault, life of the mother, it's always the value of the child. Does the child inside of the mother have value? Where does that value come from? And who has more value? In the pro-life movement, we say they're equal, that all lives matter. All lives have value, And it doesn't matter your size, your age, your location, the circumstance of your conception, your parentage, your life has equal value. And to start saying that one life has more value than another because of its age or location is a very, very slippery slope. And we know throughout human history how many times we've gotten that wrong. Does that help you?
Yes, ma'am.
I know I used to be intimidated, like when I'd speak at like Harvard, Dartmouth, and I'd be like, oh, Ivy League school students, like they're gonna ask me really hard questions. It's literally the exact same question, whether I'm speaking to middle school students or Ivy League school students at med school, it always comes down to the same thing. Does it, or whatever you wanna call the child in the womb, have value? And how do you measure the value?
First of all, I just want to tell you that I think you're fabulous. Gave me so many things, so many notes.
You're like one.
And I'm a lot older than you guys, like way older. But I have a question, adding to what you were answering to the young man. We recently had here in Arizona, through the state, basically SB 1457 didn't pass. There's a lot of little things that happened of why it didn't pass.
Which one is that? I've been paying attention, but not.
It prohibits acts related to an abortion based on genetic
Yes,
abnormality.
it's going to pass, by the way.
Okay, so I don't care if people like me because I have one person to respond to, that's it. It is what it is, so I'm trying to teach that to everybody else. But I get stuck too, and I don't always have quick answers. So on social media, when this happened, I had to say something. And the first thing that came back was, well, thank goodness, because this child would have been, these children, blah, 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 blah. Well, when I responded in saying, the dignity of every child, but then people responded back stating, well, it's easy for you to speak if you don't have a child like this. Now, I kind of stopped them there because I don't have a child with special needs, but I do have a child with a chronic illness. So though the circumstances are different, they're still similar in a lot of ways. So when I expressed that, without being specific, they kind of shut down, but then they come back saying, basically my question is, how do I defend this child also has worth? Because in their mind, it doesn't. And if this does end up passing, hopefully it does, how do I, in a simple way, just basically shut them down? Because giving them personal testimony is very powerful, but I can't do that all the way, 100%, because my child isn't special needs. They just have a circumstance that will forever be with them till they die. But I've been caring for them for 19 years. So I know the struggle, but how do I defeat that? Because I do mention my family and everything, and their thing was, well, that's good for you that you have a supportive family, blah, 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 but I need something more than that.
A couple of things respond to that. One, the simple way to engage in that is ask a question. I love asking questions because people do not think about things. They just spit out things that they've heard once on TV, think they sounded cool, and then you ask them a question and they're like deer in headlights. Do you think there's anything less extreme you can recommend than ending the life of a child? Because that's what you hear when you talk about stopping abortions or banning abortions because of genetic disability or because of poverty. You often hear, well, this child's going to be born and have all this pain. Their parents aren't going to be afforded, blah, 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 whatever the list is. We have to have abortion. It's like this misplaced compassion. And that's a pretty extremist view that they're taking. Because they're telling you that the only way to solve whatever problem they're mentioning is to end the life, stop the heart, dismember, or burn alive another member of our human species in order to solve that problem. That is extremism. And nobody likes to be an extremist. So I always like to ask the question of, isn't there anything less extreme you can suggest here? Isn't there anything we can do to alleviate the suffering of an individual or what we believe might be suffering that an individual might have versus eliminating the actual sufferer? Because you're not actually being compassionate. You're not alleviating the suffering. You're just getting rid of the sufferer. That's what you're doing. I hear this a lot. I have 2 children with CF, children with cystic fibrosis. 90% of the children who are diagnosed in utero, the test is done at the same time as the Down syndrome test. 90% of children with CF are aborted in utero. That's eugenics. In fact, the Sixth Circuit of Appeals, the U.S. Sixth Circuit of Appeals, just this week upheld a 2017 law in Ohio, similar to the one that's going to pass here, that banned, not for CF kids, just abortions for women who have been diagnosed with Down syndrome. Now, they can still have an abortion. They're just not allowed to say they're having the abortion because their child was diagnosed with Down syndrome. And of course, Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry, which says that they're all about diversity and inclusion, LGBTQIA and Pride Week and all these things. They're not for diversity of DNA, by the way. They immediately sued. The Sixth Circuit of Appeals, just this week, here's the quote. Eugenics was the root of Holocaust and is the motivation for many of the sex-selective abortions that occur today. And that's exactly what you see. And you all know what eugenics, have you ever heard the term eugenics? It's basically, there's positive and negative eugenics, but the idea is to create the ideal master race by encouraging only certain people to reproduce. That you can weed out certain disabilities. You can weed out certain types of people if you encourage only certain people to reproduce, or if you stop other people for reproducing. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was a eugenicist. Alan Guttmacher, the second president of Planned Parenthood, who today still carries the name, the Alan Guttmacher Institute, was also a eugenicist, was actually the president of the American Eugenics Council, which later became the American Genetics Council. The Nazi Party actually came here to learn about eugenics before taking it over to Nazi Germany. That's exactly what abortion does today. That's exactly what these types of abortions are happening in Arizona and across the country. We are discriminating against human beings because they have an extra chromosome. Because my children have a mutation on their DNA. Therefore, somehow they're less valuable than you. That's just wrong. So hopefully I gave you some things you can use.
It does, because you get stumped and you don't know what to
Yeah.
say. So.
Yeah, and you don't have to be like afraid to talk about this, even if you don't have a personal story. I think that's what's so interesting is we often hear this from young men who'll say, well, I am totally pro-life. I know abortion's wrong, but I can't speak out about it because I'm never going to get pregnant. That doesn't change the validity of your argument, right? That's a moral argument that you're making. Men can speak out just as much as women can. They've silenced men because men are more naturally used to be, not right now, used to be the more pro-life segment of our society, till men figured out, that they could just basically get off scot-free if they recommend or pay for an abortion, not have to own up and be a man and take the responsibility. So, yep. Other questions?
Hi, this is just to understand a little bit more about the messaging. And that I'm assuming I know that it's probably very thoughtful, and it's, but we notice the future is anti-abortion sign. Obviously, historically, you've heard a lot of like choose life, pro-life, and I assume it's very purposeful that you've kind of switched the messaging in that. So I'm just kind of curious to hear your commentary and explanation of where you're coming from.
Yeah. I think it's very important. One, the pro-life brand is kind of crap. The pro-life brand is kind of crap sometimes. I've spent about $400,000 in the last year doing research, asking women who don't like abortion but wouldn't tell their friend not to have an abortion, why don't they call themselves pro-life? Why don't they join the pro-life movement? Why won't they speak out? And the term pro-life has a lot of negative connotations with it. It's a major branding problem in the pro-life movement. We're not being live streamed, I think, right now, so we're okay. But we actually have a really big problem in the pro-life movement. That's why we do the whole I am the pro-life generation, and you always see young, smiling, joyful faces to show like, we're the majority, we're not scary. Because the abortion lobby for decades depicted pro-lifers as old, angry white men with rosaries or crucifixes shouting at cool, hip, pro-choice women. So when people think and they hear the word pro-life, the top of the mind word association is not good, first of all. And we've actively trying to change that. That's why you'll always see pro-life generation mask and pro-life generation signs. And we don't want to just give up on the term, but there's a major problem with the brand. The other thing that we also noticed when we did a lot of the brand research is a lot of people think pro-life is Republican. Now, I am very proud of the fact that the Republican Party is a pro-life party, and that was not an easy fight. My mentor, Phyllis Schlafly, fought for decades to make that happen. The Republican Party, actually, when Roe was handed down, was very, very pro-choice. Richard Nixon was a racist eugenicist. Republicans were not pro-life, and for a long time, pro-lifers would go to like Republican conventions and events, and like they were like the redhead stepchild, seat at the kids' table, sit down, shut up. And that's how it was when I got involved in politics. Sorry for the redheads. Everyone looked at you. I'm really sorry about that. I hope I didn't trigger you or whatever. All right, I don't know what I could have done. Just speaking now, I can offend people. Cancel her. No, but it was really hard, and it was a long-term battle to make the Republican Party so pro-life. Now, you may not like Republicans and their policy and whatever, but it has been a victory, because when we look at civil rights, how we got civil rights, the Civil Rights Act passed, is we had one party, the Republican Party, get behind the issue. And then you have this overwhelming force that like forced the Democrats to be like, yeah, we should definitely take this on now. Like you had to have like this consensus to build up. We know in the pro-life movement that we will only be victorious. We will know we have victory when Republicans and Democrats start actually arguing for our votes and start saying, no, I'm more anti-abortion. No, I'm more anti-abortion. Like, oh, that'd be great. But that's actually a good thing. But it's been bad in the sense of Republicans actually have a worse brand than the pro-life movement. You want to talk about who has a really bad brand? I was doing some of the research and I was like, oh, thank goodness we're not trying to rebrand the Republican Party, because they actually have a worse brand than the pro-life. So we have found anti-abortion a lot of times cuts through a lot of the preconceived notions. And it's like, I don't care what label you give yourself. I don't care what you member of whatever you say you are, LGBTQ, whatever faith background, whatever your position on immigration, whatever your position on blah, 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 you can join us here. And we want you to be a part of us. We're not saying to be pro-life, you have to be a white, conservative, middle-class Republican who goes to a country club and wears loafers and pearls or whatever. Whatever the vision of Republicans is in your head. All we're saying is we agree, we might be diverse, but we agree on this one principle. Also, I like to use the word saying abortion, because when I got involved in the pro-life movement, I tried this like 10 years ago, and it failed like completely. And just recently, we brought this back, and it's been interesting to see people embrace it more. But why I like saying abortion, 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 do you ever feel good when you hear that word? It makes you feel bad, doesn't it? The majority of people, when they hear the word abortion, the top of the mind things that people hear are death, killing, sadness. And that doesn't matter if they're pro-choice or pro-life. Everybody, instinctively, because we haven't lost our humanity, doesn't like this word. This word makes people uncomfortable. I want to say this word as much as possible, because I don't want to hide behind euphemisms like reproductive rights and choice and all these things they say. I want to say I'm against this. I'm against drunk driving. I'm against sex trafficking. I'm against child labor. I'm against smoking. I'm not like pro-clean air. I'm anti-smoking. I am totally fine saying, I hate cigarette smoke. And I don't think you should smoke cigarettes. And by the way, don't force me to pay for your health care if you smoke cigarettes. Like, I'm totally fine saying that, because I hate cigarette smoking. I hate the violence of abortion. And I'm totally fine saying, I'm anti this. And I think we need to say more of it. So hopefully that answered your question. We have lots of like little, I have lots of time to think in the pro-life movement on random things. Other questions?
I have one more question. What you just said right now.
Sorry. Kevin gets really mad if you don't.
Okay.
Blame it on him.
I have one job, baby.
Okay, so you just mentioned something very important, because this past election, we saw a lot of different groups state, you know, we are anti-abortion.
Mhm.
Okay, so you get them there, but they're hardcore against the party that technically is
Yeah.
pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the way that I do it, but I'd like to hear how, and it's not always successful, because we're not always going to be successful.
Sure.
How do you get them to vote?
Yeah.
Like in the major things, you know, some people can care less about state elections, but when it comes to the presidency, it becomes a whole totally different thing. What is your talking point in getting them to say, well, you might be blah, 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 but we need your vote for this? What do you say regarding that?
I hate abortion more than I hate Donald Trump.
Couldn't come up with that.
I don't actually hate Donald Trump, but I say, you know, like I was on the president's advisory committee and I campaigned, and but I couldn't follow him on Twitter. Debbie and I got into a little tiff at dinner the other day, but there are babies alive on this earth walking today, little toddlers, because of the policies of Donald Trump. Regardless of how you feel about him, the mean things he said on Twitter, lives were saved, and that's a statistical fact. Like, that's the truth. But regardless of how I feel about the man or a politician or whatever political office, this is always my number one goal. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. If you don't have the fundamental right to life, all the rights stem from this one right here. Nothing kills more human beings every single day, every single year in America than this.
So then I was, after COVID, when they started letting us be out and about, I was out and about the whole time, but you know, the whole other thing. So my husband and I actually went out to have lunch, and when we sat down, we looked at each other because we encountered two ladies that are very, they support certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my husband, we shouldn't get mad. It's a reality check. Everybody's coming out of whatever they're doing. And there's a lot of conversation that's going to be taking place that we haven't really had the chance to have. So it was like a slap in the face. Get yourself together, because it's going to start all over again. So she kind of cornered me on this one when she said, how can you be Catholic and support a presidency that did a lot of executions before they left office?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever asked me that.
Yeah, that's wrong. I'm against the death penalty. I was against the death penalty before I became Catholic, so that's wrong. How many people died last year because of the death penalty? How many people died last year because of abortion? Okay. And, by the way, I can vote for a politician who I might deeply disagree with a policy on immigration or whatever on. That doesn't stop me from, my job then is to work with that politician or continue to sign petitions or call them or do whatever I need to do to get them to change their mind, change their heart on these other important issues. We're not saying in the pro-life movement there aren't other important issues that affect the lives of human beings. What we're saying is this is a paramount primary issue. That practically, when you're voting for a politician, you will never, and I dare you to find a politician that you agree with 100%. You will not do that. It's just not possible. I've never found a politician that was like, yeah, 100%, I agree with you on everything. But it's a strategic decision when you go and vote. It's what is the thing that's killing the most people? Where can I do the most good? I know I can do the most good if I vote for somebody who says, yeah, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop funding the industry, the abortion industry, Planned Parenthood, that does this. That's where I know I can do the most good.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does, because I honestly didn't, I usually am pretty good. I don't get stopped. But I'm like, how do I answer that?
And you can say that, like, I disagree with Donald Trump or I disagree with whatever on their stance on the death penalty, and I'm actively telling them so, and I'm advocating for an abolishment of the death penalty. But nothing kills more human beings every day than this. Other questions? I had to have made at least one person angry with that response. Other questions? All right, well, thanks, guys. Make sure you sign up so you can get your free trip to the March for Life and you can get your information. They're going to have a March for Life here in Arizona, in Phoenix, on January 15th, so we're going to want all you to be there. Bye.